Vile was a response to letters in File magazine. Now, File magazine, I should just give a bit of background for File magazine, was where the image bank request list went into File magazine, which then expanded because File was printing out of Toronto by General Idea, printing like runs of 5,000 copies, and then went up to 10,000 copies. And I don't know where they got their mailing lists from, I never did hear, but they had more and more people with their image request things in the magazine. So I was quite hooked on File because I thought, wow, this is really great. They're acknowledging all of this activity, but then there started coming in the derisive comments by some people in particular about how vile, how mail art is just junk mail, and it's so lame it can hardly limp out of the envelope and into the garbage can, and so on. So I viewed that as a very elitist remark, and from elitist artists. So I decided that I thought that the mail art was incredible networking process, and very much a community of artists who simply were sharing their work rather than making work that was going to be offered for sale. So, so I came up with the idea of doing a parody of File, calling it Vile, and giving back a little bit of their push and shove, and also documenting the network and the people that I felt were really interesting artists and participating in this whole other way of creating art and exchanging art, which is much more community-based and acknowledging each other rather than being competitive. I mean, obviously there's always some kind of little levels of competition, and you know, people want their work to be shown. Some get shown, some doesn't get shown, that sort of thing. But it was a way of celebrating that network that I had found was so rewarding to me and so responsive. And it also gave me the opportunity, aside from the banana rag, to have a different kind of presence in the network, and also to feature the work and letters and so on of the artists themselves, rather than just being about bananas, because, you know, bananas are great and they're, you know, I have no problems with that aspect, but I did want to feature the community and acknowledge this whole process that was going on that was otherwise not being really documented. Not File, I mean, they continued to publish lists of people, but they were definitely moving towards a more mainstream attack on what, you know, people think of as art. File magazine, which was what I was reacting to also, was a more adult kind of publication in terms of the content and the imagery and so on that they presented in that magazine. So Vile is completely another view, maybe 180 degrees from the bananology, and was responding to, you know, I mean, there's things in our culture that I find repulsive and upsetting, and I think that within media we need to be able to represent those events or those actions or so on. And so there are images in Vile that are upsetting, including some of the covers. So it needs to be known that it is, that my work also reflects, you know, sort of my perception of the dark side, as well as encouraging, I mean, I'm encouraging the light side with the bananology, but I'm also acknowledging that this is something that upsets me and that I think we need to see and look at and not just pretend that it doesn't exist. So that's where the vileness in Vile comes from. Aside from the inspiration that I got from File magazine's snide remarks about mail art, there was also the fact that I was working at the time at an instant print shop called Speed Print, and I realized that this technology was affordable and that I was able, through speed print, to print the cover, which was actually done on the big press with 2 colors, woo, and the rest of it was done with the instant printing, which is just paper plates. But I was only in the beginning started with 100 copies. So it was affordable and got me started. I think the next issues moved on to a higher grade of paper and a different method of actually the second one was also photocopy. Wasn't also photocopy, it was just instant print, and stapled. And then the third copy I had printed at West Coast Print Shop in Berkeley, and it was done on wide paper that was stapled in the center, and the cover was glossy and 2 colors. So it gradually, improved in the technology that I was able to use. And I think I actually had a grant from the Coordinating Council of Literary Magazines that funded that 3rd issue. So it went from there, and then Bill, my partner at the time, wanted to do an issue, so he did the 4th issue, I did the 5th issue, he did the 6th issue, I did the 7th issue, and so on. We alternated, but it's always been an issue for me that he was credited from the beginning as being the editor or one of the editors, which was not true, but I unfortunately gave in to his appeal to put him on the letterhead saying, or the masthead saying that, it's much more important if there's 2 people involved in it, not just one person, and so on. So that was one of my regrets. But nonetheless, he did edit 3 of the issues and had a very different approach than I did. And I tolerated it, but it ended up not well. And I had enough of, it was again the same thing that I did with what happened later on with the Artist Stamp News. It just got to be too much, and I didn't want to continue on with it.